Yo, yo! Welcome back, everybody, to the writing block. I hope everybody who is watching is having a great start to 2025. If you are new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. I would love to have you as a part of our community. And for those of you who are returning viewers, welcome back. I'm glad that you are here. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And don't forget to drop a comment in the comment section below, updating me on your writing progress over the past week. And so this is our fifth, I actually misspoke in the previous video, our fifth weekly update on the channel. And so let's just kind of get into my writing statistics for this past week. And so first and foremost, this was actually a down week for me. For those of you that do not know, I was going back to work this week. And so this was the first week in a while where I kind of had to juggle not only my work responsibilities, but then also, running the channel, as well as actually setting aside time to get my writing in for the week. And it was much more difficult than I anticipated. And I wouldn't say that I completely failed, but I can tell I didn't have a plan, right? Because my writing was, I had a lot fewer writing sessions in this past week. And I skipped a few days. I also found it incredibly hard to, actually get to the keyboard a couple of days because I think I was just like, tired from going back to work and then at the end of the day, not really having the motivation or energy to write. That being said, I did complete 5 writing sessions. And so that actually does sound, I probably made it sound a lot worse than it actually was. But so I did do 5 writing sessions since the last time that I updated everyone here on the channel. And those writing sessions consisted of 30-minute sessions, which equated to 2.5 hours of writing this week. And that during that amount of time, I wrote 3,854 words. That is down a little bit. However, the average was 770 words, which was actually up a little bit. During those writing sessions, I primarily just kind of thought of a scene in my head. I just basically thought of something and just kind of played with it to see where it went. Alternatively, there were a few times where I showed up and basically just started freestyling. So I didn't really have anything in mind, and I instead just kind of, you know, uh, just basically word vomited out onto the page. And those went a little bit better than I anticipated. And so there were actually a few times where I wrote anywhere from 900 to 800 words. And so despite it being a little bit more difficult getting to the keyboard this week, when I was there, I felt like I had very productive sessions. And so going over my goals from the previous week. So last week, my goals were to either write a chapter. So one thing that I noticed was, I'm writing like the beginning half of these scenes. However, I wasn't actually making it all the way through. So it was to either write a chapter, and then the other one was coming back to work. I knew it was going to be very important for me to create a writing schedule. In terms of those goals, I did not meet either of those goals. And so this is a little bit of an anticlimactic week in that, I had goals, but I just didn't support myself in a way that positioned me to actually achieve those goals. In terms of writing the chapter, I mean, honestly, it just didn't feel salient for me when I was sitting down because it was more difficult to, get to the keyboard this week. I was more so just happy to be there and complete the writing session, focusing more on consistency rather than superimposing some kind of goal that I really didn't feel passionate about in the moment. And I think that kind of, the failure of that goal for this week, in part, comes down to poor planning and just not assessing, where I'm at as a writer at this particular time, and then also not assessing that well enough, essentially, and then also perhaps even just choosing a goal that was a little bit unrealistic in that, That's something that I've never done before, and so I think I need to do a little bit more planning on that if that is a goal that I do want to achieve in the upcoming weeks. In terms of the schedule, this was a weird one because work was not that busy. However, just being back in the office, having to get back into that routine, I found that to be incredibly draining. And so there actually were a lot of times throughout the day where I could say, oh, I want to take 30 minutes here and just complete my writing session. However, I just couldn't do it for whatever reason. And so it was almost one of those like counterintuitive situations where I had more time than I expected. And so it was easy for me to be like, oh, I'll just do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. And then it's getting towards the end of the day when I'm about to leave for the day. And it's easy to just kind of push it off and not do it. And so that's kind of how my goals went for the week. In terms of what went well for this week, I will say that I did like what I wrote this week. So there were a few days where, I took a day off and then I came back to writing and I actually got a lot of words out compared to what I've done in previous weeks. And that was something that was pretty surprising for me. And I don't know what exactly I could attribute that to. I don't know if it was being more fresh. I don't know if it was, having an idea I felt particularly passionate about. I don't think it was that, just because, it was challenging at times just to get myself to kind of, get anything down on the page. However, I was a little bit reassured that, like, oh, even though this is becoming more difficult as I kind of move into the fifth or sixth week of this, because the motivation is, a little bit lower, and I'm more so having to rely on my habits and, just being consistent and that kind of carrying me through my writing sessions. Um, I thought that seeing that little bit of progress, even if it was just like an extra 100 words in my writing session, was very satisfying. Along with the content of those writing sessions, I thought were better, or at least I resonated with them more. I enjoyed them more. I liked them a little bit more. And so I think that that can be partially attributed to just me finding my voice a little bit as an author, and that I'm not as worried about, oh, this sounds like shit. And instead, I'm just kind of rolling with it. Yeah, it's some sentences are going to suck. Some paragraphs are going to suck. And right now, that's not really what I'm focusing on, right? I'm just focusing on getting stuff out on the page. I'm kind of working on flexing the muscle of telling stories. And I can already tell that I'm a little bit less reluctant to write dialogue. I'm less reluctant to write female characters. I'm less reluctant to write something completely new. I actually tried out writing a little bit of sci-fi this week, which was something that was totally different. I have no idea where that came from because I'm not reading any sci-fi, but that was something that I was pleasantly surprised by. Another thing too was, despite having a lot of challenges, so a lot more things this week did not go well as opposed to going well. Despite having those challenges and those doubts, there was one day where I actually wrote on my phone. So I use Google Docs for writing, and that is publicly available down in the description below if you want to check in on my writing progress for the week as well as previous weeks. Every single writing session that I've done since starting the channel is down there. But one thing I did was I was like, I basically put off writing until like 7 o'clock at night. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. And then for whatever reason, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write on my phone today. And that was, I only wrote like 500 words in 30 minutes, which was my lowest for the week. However, I do want to emphasize that and highlight that as something that went well, in that it was kind of one of those situations where I didn't feel like it. It was the end of the day. There were a lot of different barriers kind of, preventing me from writing that day because it was busy for whatever reason. In addition to, I was full of excuses. That being said, I put those excuses aside, just picked up the little telephone and just kind of typed on my phone. And so I thought that that was a huge win for me, overcoming that barrier. And then also just knowing going forward that that's something that I can utilize in the future if, I'm on the run and I don't have as much time as I normally do to actually get down to the computer and complete my writing session. And so moving on to the next kind of section of the video is what did not go well. So there were a lot of things this week that did not go well. I won't dwell here as to not kind of, portray a gloomy, not make this all gloomy and kind of a sad, sad video, but I think it was kind of the normal stuff that writers struggle with a lot. So, I was kind of discouraged this week. I was questioning whether or not I really want to do this. I was, making more excuses for myself than I had in the past. Kind of getting down on myself because thinking that, this channel, it's a silly thing, or this aspiration to be a writer, it's silly, right? I'm past my time, I'm almost 30. It's time for me to grow up. And so I think just having those very human doubts was something that did not go as well this week. And then I have kind of previously alluded to this, but just going back to work and managing that alongside the channel and writing, it went about as poorly as you could have anticipated. Um, and I expected it. I expected it to be more difficult, but I didn't do anything to support myself and setting myself up for success. And so that's one that's particularly difficult for me to kind of grapple with, in that I knew it was coming, and I kind of just let it smack me in the face anyways. But that's okay. And then the last thing, because of the crazy week and the struggles that I had, on top of that, the past 2 days here in Texas, we've had a snow day. So we've been kind of struggling with, the winter storm and all that. And so this is a day late, our weekly update. But I'm not going to dwell on that too much, just because I think that just getting the video out and being consistent with it is the most important thing. And so having the kind of sad portion of our video can conclude with that. I'll move on to next week's goals. And so as I sit here today, how I'm feeling is very optimistic about next week. I feel like, the challenges from the previous week are something that I can learn from, and I am excited to kind of redress in an attempt to bounce back strong. And so my goals for the next week, first and foremost, it is 4 writing sessions. I want to do 4 writing sessions because that is going to help me remain consistent and on a trajectory towards reaching my long-term goals. And it's also a number that feels very low, right? It feels very manageable. And just because I know that I did have struggles this past week, let's set it low. Let's set ourselves up for a win this week, just because I think that that's something that's going to be very important, right? We don't want the bad weeks to snowball. And instead, let's just kind of redirect and reassess so that we can set ourselves up for some wins and get the momentum rolling in that direction. I also do want to kind of outline my schedule. So last week I totally failed on the writing schedule, but this week I'm going to sit down and I'm really going to assess A, when is going to be the best time for me to write on a consistent basis, and then B, also look at my schedule and block off a little bit amount of time for the channel. So one thing I do want to be is very consistent, and I also want the quality of these videos to increase. You can see, right, if you are a returning viewer, that we have a different setup yet again. We've had like 5 different setups, and that's just in part due to bad planning. It's also due to just some life events that you couldn't really control. And so blocking off some time for writing specifically, and then also devoting some time and thinking about, right, realistically, how much time I have to devote to the channel is something that I want to do. And then in the last kind of goal for the week related to the channel, I want to look into some kind of editing software of some kind. So right now, as you can probably see, these are videos that are just kind of recorded straight off the dome. I do very minimal editing, if any, on most of the videos. And so I want to look into potentially finding a free software so that I can just kind of begin dabbling with the editing process, so that I can improve the content that I am putting out there. And so that is my goals for the upcoming week. I'm super excited to get back to writing. If you have any writing goals for the week, please do throw them down there in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. And also, again, just make sure you like and subscribe so that you can become a member of our community here on the channel. And so with that being said, happy writing, everyone.